in brightest day.
In blackest night.
No evil shall escape my sight.
Beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
Yeah, that oath isn't even in Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1 because this origin story picks up in a post-Green Lantern Corps universe. The Manhunters have destroyed the Green Lanterns. They rule the galaxy with an iron fist, and those that live under their rule, their hope is destroyed. The rings only work at a fraction of their true potential, and all are in need of a recharge. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1. This is just absolutely fantastic. It's my favorite in the Earth 1 series. You can check out my full review for this graphic novel right here, see the grade I gave it and everything. And just a warning, spoilers ahead as I talk about this. I'm excited for Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 2, so I thought this was the perfect time to reread, revisit, and also talk about, again, Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1, and this time dive deep into a theological analysis. Now, if you like these type of videos that I do, be sure to hit that like button, hit that share button, and share this with a friend, and hit that subscribe button. The last time I was rereading this graphic novel, the main word that kept going through my head was recharge. I feel like that was the theme of Earth 1 Volume 1. Everyone and everything needed a recharge. I feel like when you look at the rings themselves, they're almost an analogy for everything that is going on in the story, because the rings themselves are only operating at a small fraction of their true potential because they've been separated from the main Green Lantern Corps central battery. So they've been separated from that true power source. So yeah, those that bear the rings, they got their little lantern batteries that recharge the rings, but those little lantern batteries are only picking up remnants of the energy of will that is left in the galaxy after that true power source was cut off. So the rings themselves are only operating at a fraction of their true potential until they can reconnect with the main Green Lantern Corps power battery. And then you have the Manhunters. Now this is an interesting plot line all to itself with the Earth 1 series that I really like. So you have the Owens, the Guardians, the little blue people. And what they did is they created the Green Lantern Corps to bring order to the galaxy. But that's like cruel, because what they meant by bringing order to the galaxy, they wanted to conform the galaxy to their image and their likeness. And as the Green Lantern Corps formed, you have different creatures from different worlds and different cultures, all so diverse, and the Owens are like, no, we wanted to conform the whole galaxy to our image. And so they created the Manhunters to destroy the Green Lantern Corps in order to accomplish that. And it worked. The Manhunters crushed and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps. They are gone. Then they turned and crushed and destroyed the Guardians, with only one Guardian surviving. Well, that I know of thus far. Only one Guardian surviving. So now you have the Manhunters oppressing the galaxy. A few planets that haven't been oppressed yet, but overall the galaxy lives in fear and crushed because this lie has gone out into the galaxy that the Green Lantern Corps central power battery is destroyed. And with it being destroyed, there's no hope. There's no hope of the rings reaching their full potential. Therefore, the bearers reaching their full potential. Therefore, no hope of this oppression being defeated. So they're all in a survival mode. That's all they can do is just survive. And that's all they use the ring's power to do is just survive. The other interesting thing, and I think it adds a little extra conflict later in the story, is instead of a bearer of the ring dying, and the ring going to the next person who's worthy, the next person who has no fear. Instead of it being that way, these rings are being passed down through the generations like a family heirloom. Which does mean somebody else can grab a hold of that ring who may not have the best intent, which leads to an interesting point a little bit later. But as this ring is continuing being passed down, so is the lack of hope. Something that can't reach its full potential is being passed down, reaffirming the lack of hope that they live in, reaffirming the lie that there is no power battery to reconnect to, and so they're trapped in this oppression. And then you have Hal Jordan. I'm just going to go back to calling him Hal. But Hal Jordan is also living at a small fraction of his true potential because he's living in guilt and shame, and living in guilt and shame, he's running away. You see, on Earth, for a time, he used to work for NASA, and he was part of a project building this suborbital platform. And this was, built to launch ships into deep space, which is actually kind of a cool concept, and it was built for defense, but it was turned against its own country. When you get to some of the ending panels in this, you see in Florida, there's these pictures of what looks like a dictator. You have mention of the fact that they're living under one party now. And so it's very interesting because you know now the earth is living under some form of oppression, and I'm curious to get into volume 2 and read that and see what all of that is and what's going on the earth. But the point is Hal Jordan felt like he should have spoken up. He should have stood up for what was right. And he didn't take that step of faith. So he was part of them building this platform that they called Arrowhead that was turned against its own country, and now some very bad people use that as an opportunity to take power. So his guilt and shame that he was part of that, his guilt and shame that he didn't stand up for what was right, and maybe he didn't stand up because he believed if he did, nobody else would have joined him, and he would have stood up alone. The fact that all these people lied to him and betrayed him and then used this to oppress the world has left him with no trust in people. And so he's running. He has no trust, he has guilt, he has shame, and now he's actually managed, working for Ferris Galactic and mining the asteroids and the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. He has managed to figure out how to spend 8 years in space without ever touching down on Earth, because that's how ashamed he is, how scared he is, how much he's running. So he's truly living in survival mode at only a fraction of his true potential. And through a series of events, which you should read the graphic novel because it's incredible, he discovers the Green Lantern ring and ends up fighting a 100-year-old Manhunter. I almost said Martian Manhunter. He almost fights a 100-year-old Manhunter that was damaged in a previous fight, and so he was able to defeat it, but that ring jettisoned him deep into space, leaving his battery behind, and Kilowog finds him because a distress signal was sent out. So Kilowog saves his life in the cold of space, and they develop a friendship as Kilowog begins to teach him and train him how to use the ring. So they're on Kilowog's home planet. No aliens allowed because they don't want to draw attention to that planet and bring down the Manhunters. So attention was drawn to the planet, and the Manhunters came and started to oppress that planet. And again, Hal, feeling like this is his fault, rescues Kilowog because against Manhunters that are fully operational and young and powerful, like, he has no ability to defeat those with the ring. The ring can't do that. So he saves Kilowog, and he says, what we need to do is get as many people who have rings together as possible. And maybe if we have tons of them together, we could stand against the Manhunters and save your planet. So they go to do that. And Hal finds his worst fears confirmed. You ever had that where you try to step out and you just find your worst fears confirmed? Every time he stepped out and found somebody who bore a Green Lantern ring and he asked for their help, their answer was no. It was either because of fear or because they're trying to take care of their own people. So they're trying to use the limited power that they have to take care of their people, and there's no way they can just leave their people to fight for another planet. And so Hal and Kilowog are both getting more and more depressed. What Hal couldn't see, though, is that this was his steps on the journey that were going to bring life back to the galaxy and life back to the rings, that he had truly stepped out into his destiny. And he could have let discouragement keep him from that this entire time. Especially when he gets kidnapped. Like, his ring dies, and he can't even understand Kilowog. So they get separated for just a moment, not even out of anger, but while they're separated, Hal gets captured by the Manhunters. He's taken to Oa as a slave and works there, I assume, for months as a slave, unable to communicate with anyone because his ring is totally dead, till he walks by a dome and his ring comes back to life, recharged, with just enough power that he can understand the aliens, and he knows there's something in that dome. So this one female alien who's got like these tentacles and stuff, like, he befriends her, or he thinks he does, until he's asleep and she steals his ring, because he was saying, well, let's save as many slaves as we can now that the ring kind of works. She goes, but it doesn't have that kind of power, and you're not worthy to wield this stupid thing, so we're saving ourselves. And when he's like, no, I care about these people, what does she do? When he's sleeping, she steals his ring, again confirming his discouragement and confirming his fears that people are bad, alien or otherwise. When she gets killed, he reclaims his ring and ends up breaking through the dome and reconnects with the Green Lantern central battery, the main battery, and his ring reaches its full potential. While he's in there, one of the last surviving Guardians communicates with him, and communicates to him a lie. If you could get the whole Corps here to point their rings at this battery, it'll destroy Oa. And in destroying Oa, you will break the backs of the Manhunters and their oppression. And Hal has a problem with that, because there's all kinds of innocent people on Oa. And so what we see is hope is re-energized in him. He's caring about other people, and now this is his time to stand in faith. His ring has reached its full potential because he's reconnected with the main power source. And so you know what he could have done? He could have allowed his bitterness to confirm what he already believed. Everybody's trash. All the other lanterns said no. This lady betrayed me at the end and took my ring in my sleeve. Like, nobody's good and nobody cares about anybody. Why should I care what's going on with these slaves? Why should I care about this planet? He could have flown off and saved himself, except he reconnected with that main power source and his ring reached its full potential. And in reaching that full potential, he tapped into a gift he didn't even know his ring had, and he sent a message out to everybody. Everybody receiving the first message in generations on the ring realized they were lied to. They realized that the central power battery was real and it was still out there, and they could reconnect with that main power source, and their rings can reach their full potential and they could end their oppression. And as hope came alive, they all showed up. You see, what held Hal back that first time was a lie. That belief that he was alone, and if he stood up for what was right, nobody would be there to stand with him. So when Hal took that step of faith, he found that he wasn't alone. In fact, he found another amazing principle, that once they saw the full potential, once they saw that life and what their rings were capable of, they suddenly were hungry for it. And then the Green Lanterns show up. Hope was recharged in their hearts, and they came to experience that full potential as they saw Hal reach when he connected with that battery. And when they came, we saw this awesome picture where God makes a human body, and it's made of many diverse parts: ears, eyes, nose, mouth, but the body needs all of those parts with all of their different giftings and functions to make one complete body. And what we see here is that beauty and that diversity of the Green Lantern Corps and their giftings when they show up. And one of those aliens is a physicist, and he saw through the evil Guardian's lie, and he said, we don't have to point our rings at this battery. We can actually turn the power outward and destroy the Manhunters and leave Oa intact and save all of the slaves. So because of all of that gifting and all of that talent and those different perspectives that came in, they were able to save all of those slaves. So what that shows us is that importance of taking that step of faith. And what I love is taking the analogy of that ring reaching its full potential when it gets connected with that battery. It's the same way with us and God. We reach our full potential when we truly connect to Him in a relationship with Him through Jesus. Now, you had the Corps. They came in and they tore down that dome. When they did that, the power of that battery was now flowing freely throughout the galaxy, so those rings could reach their full potential and their full charge. Jesus tore down what stood between us and God. So now there's nothing, and we could come to God through Jesus freely. But sometimes there's lies that we believe, things that we hold on to, and therefore we don't come to God. I know for me, one of the things I've let keep me from God is just feeling guilty and ashamed, where I've run from God instead of to God, like Hal Jordan, where he was running from instead of running to. And in running from, fear was keeping him from reaching his full potential. And running from God, it was keeping me from my full potential. It wasn't like I was running from God like I was scared of him, but it was just in that I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, I need to get this right because God must be rolling his eyes going, oh, that mistake again. And so that lie was leading me to believe I have to fix this and make myself feel good in order to come back and talk to God. But that's not true. That lie was keeping me from connecting with God. Like the Green Lanterns, they believed the lie that the power battery was destroyed. So they believed there was no hope. So maybe sometimes we're believing there is no God. Or maybe sometimes we're believing God doesn't care about me, and how could he care or even know about my situation? He's got bigger and better things to take care of. And therefore we feel like God doesn't care about us. And that lie can keep us from connecting to him and discovering our full potential. Jesus said to let your light shine before men. And in this graphic novel, we get a good picture as to why he said that. Because the Green Lantern Corps was only living to survive under oppression without hope, because they believed the lie. That hope was dead, and they didn't believe they could find it or connect to it. But Hal Jordan took that step of faith. He connected to that main Green Lantern Corps battery. His ring reached its full potential, and he sent out that message. And when they saw the power that was in his ring, and they saw it reach its full potential, they saw the truth. Hope isn't dead, hope is alive. So they rushed out to connect with the battery themselves. And that's what the world needs to see in us today as we take that step of faith and begin a relationship with Jesus and truly connect to God, and hope is reborn in our hearts. That transformation will show the world the truth that hope is alive. When I read Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1, it's a bunch of lies from the oppressors, from the Manhunters, from the Guardians, that central power battery is destroyed and there is no hope. All that you have left is just to survive and not thrive. Just do your best to survive. What they found was the truth. That power source was real. And when they connected to that power source, they received the power not just to survive, but to thrive. God has broken the back of what oppresses us already. Now it's up to us to come into that relationship with Him and experience that thriving life that He has for us. So when I read Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1, and I see them all just surviving, barely reaching their full potential until they reconnect to that main battery, that's what I think about. Like, that's the message that I see behind that. When you read Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1, what do you see behind this story? Let's talk about that in the comments. Also, let's talk about, are you excited for Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 2? I cannot wait to read it. I cannot wait to review it. So be ready for that. Hit that subscribe button and the bell by that subscribe button so that when I drop that review, you'll be notified. You'll also be notified whenever I do my next theological analysis, movie review, ranking video, or anything else that I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.